Hey, Mike,
Yes.
it's time for a lightning round.
Is it?
It is. Tonight, folks, we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons homebrew rules, the good, the bad, and the terrible. So, I posted on Reddit roughly 2 weeks ago looking for inspiration. Give me your extremes. What's the best homebrew rule, class, feature you've encountered, and what is the worst? I wanted
Hmm.
to know what people enjoy playing, and I wanted to know what people stay up late at night thinking, who the hell could possibly play this way? Now, sadly, my post was deemed low effort and locked by the moderators of this particular subreddit. And not really keen on that because I was pretty descriptive. But,
Hmm.
whatever floats their boat.
Just goes to show that Reddit mods are about as bad as Discord mods.
So a gentleman here named Mate Abel says he has something called martial prowess. Marshals get at level 5 and half-casters get it at level 11. It basically just means that when you roll damage for a weapon attack, you can roll 2 damage die instead of 1, i.e., short sword becomes 2d6 instead of 1d6. Daggers deal 2d4. A weapon such as a maul, which does a base damage of 2d6, now deals 3d6.
Huh.
You still add your ability modifier to the damage. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a brilliant idea because casters overtake marshals very quickly in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition.
Yeah,
Am I
no, I
right?
get that. Yeah. I mean, that's not a bad idea. I might actually implement that.
I think I might as well. I really like that here.
Yeah.
The only plurif motherfucker posts the best sorcerers with quicken spells don't have to worry about casting multiple level spells in a turn. It just works. BG3 style. I
Huh.
don't play a lot of sorcerers, so I have no freaking idea what he's talking about.
I mean, me neither. Just talking about any spellcaster class is all Greek to me.
So the worst, skill checks no longer exist. Ooh.
Oh.
You cannot make a check if you don't have a proficiency in the skill. If you do have a proficiency, it's an automatic success, no matter what your actual modifier is. A wizard with athletic proficiency and an 8 strength will always succeed against a fighter without a proficiency and a 20 strength. Left that game after one session, and there were loads of other shit rules.
Wah,
That's
wah, wah, wah.
That is some low effort DMing. All right.
Yeah.
Stoneguard the Gray says best 10-minute short rests, maximum 3 short rests before taking a long rest. And if you really want to make hit die important, long rests no longer restore HP, just give them half their hit dice. Ooh, I really like that.
I kind of like the whole full heal on a long rest thing.
Yeah, I do and I don't.
It can be
Primarily,
a little overpowered, especially if the, party has, just a little bit of respite before going up against the BBEG when they're supposed to be beaten down and tired. Come on.
well, that's true. That is the key, folks, to encounter balancing in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is resource management. So if you can drain your players' resources before they get to the BBEG and don't give them adequate rest beforehand, by far that is the best way to deal with overpowered characters. Even the ones that are so OP that you can't throw anything against them, well, just let them wear them out. Wear them out a little bit. It'll be good.
Oh, yeah, you don't like the way you think there, bud.
Well, you got to remember, as a dungeon master, you do not want to be adversarial to your players. However,
Exactly.
you do want them to be challenged a little bit. So that's a good way to challenge them. So his worst DM allowed abilities that ignored the loading property to also ignore the reload property from Matthew Mercer's Gunslinger Firearms. Immediately
Mm.
after that rule, a player made an elven accuracy samurai fighter with a gunner feat and sharpshooter using a +2 2d12 rifle. We literally fought a 1,000 hit point boss monster because the DM knew the character would delete 300 hit points by himself in just a few rounds. Holy
Yeesh.
hell.
Just harkens back to a, table I played at once where a character well, the player owns every D&D book and has gobs of free time, so he knows how to min-max, and he created a gunner multi-classed with an artificer, and basically rolled d20s for damage and got lucky rolls, which reloaded themselves on a short rest instead of a long rest due to a feat. And by golly, that dude could not take damage and he could not fail.
I just see, I don't know what the fun is in playing D&D with a character like that. You
Yeah,
can't
there really
fail.
isn't fun.
That isn't fun.
Without
Alright,
that sense of urgency and self-preservation, what do you got?
exactly, exactly. Aeon 1508 says, "The worst homebrew rule is critical failure on ones for all D20 tests." Yikes.
Does it go into any detail on that?
That's just how he ends it.
Huh.
Um,
I mean, if you roll a d20 and you get a 1, it's a crit fail.
well, is it on a skill check?
Yeah,
There
a
are no
lot of the
crit
times.
There are actually no critical fails in 5th edition Dungeons& and Dragons. It is an
Well, okay,
optional
no,
rule.
5th edition, no, there isn't. I just remember harkening back to the olden days, if you crit fail on, like, a skill check trying to balance across a log, you fall into the river.
Well, but if you are a professional acrobat who has, like, a +12 to their acrobatics, I think even on a 1, that should still be a 13.
Mm,
And
I'm
it's up to the dungeon master to set the DC higher. I
I'll
mean,
give you that, but at the same time, I mean, a crit fail to me just means you critically failed.
see, man, the more I think about this, Michael, our nerd is showing so
It
bad right now.
really is, but at the same time, we're making good points.
Fighters with action surge are going to be rolling 6 dice. The wizard is going to be forcing every enemy on the board to roll a saving throw. So the fighter that's already worse has more opportunities to fail terribly, while the wizard has more opportunities for amazing success. It's not really fun and it's terrible for balance. That was Aeon's follow up to that.
Hmm.
And he's absolutely right. So a fighter flying in there trying to use action surge and trying to attack a wizard who's casting a spell now has more opportunity to fail, while the wizard who's casting the spell with a saving throw has a better opportunity of taking him down. And I'm sorry, folks, wizards don't need any more help than they already got.
Yeah, wizards are already a bit overpowered. They get access to the wish spell.
Well, the wish spell isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Yes, it is.
The laser farmer says, "If you want the worst, anything on D&D" sounds like a man with a grudge right there.
Uh-huh.
Slow Kid 68 says, "Multiply casting time by spells of 10 except for cantrips." This one blew my fucking mind.
That's a little mind-blowing right there,
One
yeah.
one action becomes 10, which is 1 minute. 1 minute becomes 10 minutes, 1 hour becomes 10 hours.
Hell no.
I personally replied to that comment and said, "That sounds awful. How long are you gonna wait to cast Fireball?" And
Combat already takes hours.
he replied back, "I remember playing an old version of D&D with my friends, and they had to protect me while I was casting the spell. The monsters were weaker in turn, but it definitely adds more planning phase to gameplay." Now, honestly, if you wanna run a tactical battle simulation game and not Dungeons& and Dragons, and you don't mind your combat, having to be so thoroughly planned out by your players, then this actually isn't that terrible of an idea to make spells take longer to cast, because I don't think there's hardly any spells that are combat oriented that aren't one action.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I'll give you that, but at the same time, I mean, we've in the game that we're playing, we've had, one of our players take time to do a ritual type spell in the middle of combat.
Not in the middle of combat. I think Godfrey has done multiple ritual spells, but he always does them outside of combat because a ritual spell takes 10 minutes.
Could have sworn that he did one ritual spell in combat.
Well, I'll have to go back and look at my notes, but
I could be wrong. I could just be misremembering or stupid or both.
so Patient Empath says, "My party is level 6. All monsters except minions have DC saves for any all attacks they have. I make up my own thematic conditions like obsessed with perfection, rolling 3d20s at disadvantage. Bleeding PCs automatically lose 1d8 health at start of turn. Any melee attack against fire elementals deals 1d4 to 1d6 fire damage to PC. All monsters that do at least 2 attacks and usually a bonus action, my mini myconids 10
Myconids?
yeah, myconids, 10 HP, 10 AC explode in a 3 by 3 area, dealing damage and spreading spores. Rolling a 5 or 6 on a D6 automatically grows another myconid of the same type in the area. If a PC is grappled by tentacles or similar, they are drugged towards the monster. They lose 1d4 health for the monster. Difficult terrain deals damage if on a failed acrobatics check or constitution save. Some of those are gruesome.
A little bit,
I
yeah.
don't think Patient Empath likes their players very much, but I also believe
Doesn't
that
seem
is
like it,
I also feel like that's a woman, and I bet you she
potentially.
plays D&D with a bunch of men, and that's why
Well,
she's trying to kill them.
using the word empath as your username is a pretty surefire way to tell if you're a man or a woman.
I'm kidding. I have absolutely nothing against women playing D&D. I am just joking with you. Patient Empath, I applaud you in your creativity, though, because some of those things that you've done, while are pretty brutal to your players, make a lot of freaking sense. So,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
here for
okay.
you.
The thing with the myconids, though, I mean, they are, listed in the user manual or the, player's handbook, rather,
No,
pretty fully. They are actual monsters.
no, I believe you. I believe you. All right,
Yeah, I think there's
hearken
already a
in.
rule about that in there.
Harkonnen 985 says, if you are looking for a D&D class with a completely novel theme and mechanics, there's nothing out there quite like the Spirit Master. Here's a link to my Google Drive. I could care less about your Spirit Master class, sir. You were just trying to shamelessly plug your class and not tell me what I was actually looking for. I don't want to read your shit. You could have just given me a too long didn't read.
Yeah, indeed, and that link probably will just take you straight to a pay site.
It was actually legitimately a Google link, and it did have some really cool artwork, if I recall. But if you're interested, ladies and gentlemen, in that, I can definitely share that in the description. Ericules98 says, I could drop you a link to World Anvil of a class and 4 subclasses I made if you want. It's not extreme, but it could pull some inspiration out of it. And he did. And I did take a look at that. His World Anvil page was quite awesome. And I was pretty impressed. I will share that link too. If you want to email me in, arguingwithdragons@gmail.com. I will totally share that with you. PTHDUN, he's not 13, whatever. I run a few different homebrew rules each game and then filter out what I do and don't like. I did not read this comment after posting. I can say that I've come across many that I don't like. The only one that really stands out to me is if an attack roll meets the armor class of its target, it's half damage.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that.
It's not awful or game breaking, but not one that benefited the game. I totally agree with you that that is not a benefit to the game and should not be implemented. Anything that hinders melee damage is stupid because poor marshals don't have hardly anything they can do but deal damage with their melee weapon, and it just don't compare. So, no, I don't like that. Homebrew rule I've come up with that we've implemented in my most recent game for character creation to settle the disparity between point buyers and roll for starters. We do a point buy, but roll a d4 and get that outcome as a stat bonus. I personally don't
Oh.
like stat rolling. I am less concerned about people who get great rolls and just had a few players they get absolute dog shit, and I feel awful for them. This makes sure that everyone has at least an equal base, but gives a small boost to those who love randomness. I'm sorry, folks, just use the standard array. That solves every problem you'll ever have with people who roll really good or people who, they point by, and point by really doesn't buy you better stats than the standard array. It can't. And if your character says, "Oh, I point by," and they have 2 18s in their stats, no, they did not point by. They cheated. I'm sorry. And I know a player in particular in one of my games that did this. It is what it is. But just use the standard array, folks. You don't have to be a Superman. 5e will already turn you into a god killer. You don't need to cheat to be
I
any
mean,
stronger.
not immediately, but yes.
Oh, by the time you get to level 12, as a dungeon master, it gets more and more frustrating to handle the balance of the players' like pages of abilities they now have.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, it's okay. That's part of the fun, part of the challenge. Two homebrew rules that I really like that I took from Cinder Block Sally. Oh, what a name.
Yes,
Monks
indeed.
get extra key points equal to wisdom modifiers, which I love this rule, and give a SI and a feat at the appropriate level, but they don't get +1 from any half feats, just the ability. Okay, so what he's saying is he gives when, you hit level 4 and whatever other levels that you gain stat increases.
Right.
He's giving stat increases and a feat instead of just one or the other, because the current system says one or the other. Now, and half feats, which are feats that also give you an ability and like 1 point to a stat, you just get the ability. I, ladies and gentlemen, love this rule. I think it allows you to use the feats to truly customize your character out of the box, and the stat increase is really not that big of a deal. Everybody's maxed at 20 anyway. Um, this is truly that's true gold right there. Character customization and anything you can do to give your players more customization to their characters is a good thing. And last but not least, the username checks out on this one. Adolf Littler 1488 says, "One of my DM or one my DM does that everyone seems to enjoy is that anyone can make an attack as a bonus action, but you don't add any of your proficiency modifiers to the attack or damage roll. That is actually rules as written. That is not a homebrew rule. As long as your weapon in your offhand is smaller than the weapon in your main hand, you can do that already in D&D.
I am going to remember that the next time we play your game.
If you have the abilities or a class feature that allows you to make a bonus action attack, you roll normally. So, yes, everybody has, if you look on your character sheet, I believe everybody has two weapon fighting on their character sheet. Almost everybody does. And what that means is you can attack with your offhand if as long as you have a, weapon in it that has the light characteristic,
Yep.
and you just don't get to add any of your modifiers. That's
Yep.
been like that forever, and when you take the weapon the feat, the 2 weapon fighting feat, that allows you to put your modifiers in.
RIP great axe users.
Alright, so that concluded the post. It got locked after that guy, and, you know, we were on to something fun there. People were giving me their good ideas. I was really writing down I was coming up with some plans and some good
Yeah.
replies when
They call it a low
homeboy
effort post, but you had all those people posting on it. Come on, that's
uh,
engagement.
I thought it was engagement, but, you know, Reddit sometimes doesn't always agree with me, and that's fine. That's fine. That's called a
Well, Reddit's
community,
an
folks.
idiot.
It can be. So, Mike, what is your favorite homebrew rule?
Well, there was a homebrew rule that I played a while back. It wasn't my game, it was another guy's. But if you went into death saving throws twice in one combat, the second time you would actually meet the Reaper. And instead of death saving throws, you would roll for a positive or negative effects upon being revived. The revival would be basically automatic unless you take damage while unconscious, and it's still a full round or 3 full rounds rather, you make a saving throw. If you got 2 negative and 1 positive, it would be a negative, debuff upon being, woken up, and it would maintain until you got a restore spell cast on you. If you got 2 positives, it would be a buff until a restore spell is cast. And, or I said that wrong, it would be a positive until you finish the next long rest.
Hmm,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
So, I'm not gonna share too many of the homebrew rules I've known or tried because there's just so many, it would take hours. But I will say one of the most recent homebrewing that I did that was from a player perspective versus dungeon master perspective. I had my favorite illusory warrior character, Rax, who was a, Eldritch Knight as a subclass,
Mhm.
and he was a two-handed sword user, and I wrote it into his story why he was an Eldritch Knight. And it was because he worked for a great high senate as a basically like a special operative. And it was basically an explanation for why a fighter would have magic that he didn't study or didn't learn. And it also worked for arcane tricksters. Why would a rogue, a simple street thief, have sudden magical abilities to do all this stuff? Because one thing I really don't like about 5th edition is that everybody can just get magic no matter what class they are. If they take the right subclass, they have spells. And story-wise, I want there to be an explanation for that. So I made up this bullshit that the people who were the arcane tricksters and the Eldritch Knights who were inducted into this organization had to drink the blood of a dead god, and that blood is what gave them those powers. So the homebrew part of it, though, was is an Eldritch Knight they can summon their bonded weapon at any point. And I made it so that the weapon he summoned would almost, like, materialize in blue magic in his hand. And then whenever he was done with it, he'd just throw it down and it would just disappear at that point. Because as long as it was anywhere on the same plane of existence, he could summon it. So, just made sense, and it made for a lot of neat moments and a lot of neat, monologue scenes where he's just holds his hand up and all of a sudden this big two-handed sword just appears in his hand. So,
That's pretty neat.
it was kind of fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, send us in your favorite homebrew rules, arguingwithdragons@gmail.com. Tell us exactly what works and what doesn't for your table. And if you've got something that's just awful, like totally putrid, disgusting, makes you want to vomit, and you can't understand how anybody would enjoy playing D&D like that, send that in too. I want to hear from you.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to read some of these hilariousnesses.
For sure, for sure. All right, stay tuned. Our next episode will be dropping soon where we're going to be talking about Pokemon, everybody's favorite
Yay!
digital monsters. I mean, not digital monsters. I
Well,
mean,
that's Digimon.
it is. All right, folks, have a good night. Take care.
Good night.